Let's create a world for our future fortress, or more specifically, our future fortresses, adventurers, denizens, and creatures. Dwarf Fortress is not just the fortress or adventure you play with, but rather a virtual world filled with so many entities that you could spend hundreds of hours, days, years exploring even just a single one. This is Telenartho, and here's where we are going to dig deeper. Before you start any fort, you need to create a world. By default, the map is set to medium, the length of history to 100 years, and mineral occurrence is set to everywhere. All the other settings are left at medium. If you're a new player, you might want to leave these settings as they are. If you're ready to explore some of these settings though, let's talk about what they do and why you might want to choose them. To give an example of how long it takes to generate a large world with 500 years of history and the maximum number of civilizations and sites, I'll have that running in the background. World map size determines the size of the world generated. The specific numbers of tiles can be found in the Dwarf Fortress Wiki World Generation page. The size of the world determines not only the size of the world overall, but also affects the total number of forgotten beasts and works in tandem with the settings in the number of civilizations, number of sites, and number of beast settings. Medium worlds provide a good number of forgotten beasts, 243, and give civilizations the opportunity to develop on their own without too much negative interaction, while not isolating them completely. Some landmass separation will provide natural boundaries for that development as well. Medium worlds are great for a long-running world where you are planning to run multiple forts, play in multiple factions, and if you want to explore a reasonable number of varied terrains, savagery, and mineral combinations. Pocket worlds are probably best used for shorter adventures, where you want to see all of the known world in a reasonable period. Maybe your goal is to master all of the forgotten beasts, titans, and mega beasts in the world. This would be much easier to achieve in a pocket world than in a much larger one. If you have a goal of taking over the known world, this would be relatively achievable in a pocket world. If a pocket world is too small for your goals, smaller and small settings would scale up by quadrupling the size of the world by each step. Large worlds, by contrast, are going to be so large that you could not reasonably explore every corner of the world, even with hundreds of hours of playtime, through multiple forts. Large worlds have a staggering number of forgotten beasts, nearly 1,000 of them, and with such a wide world, quadruple the size of a medium world, probably will include multiple large land masses and many islands. You can explore virtually every terrain, savagery combination, over the course of multiple forts. Skipping history length for now, we'll talk about the next two settings: number of civilizations and maximum number of sites. The number of civilizations controls the number of surface civilizations in the world, specifically dwarves, humans, goblins, kobolds, and elves. According to the wiki, if the maximum number of civilizations is greater than 40, which is for high and very high for a medium or large world, then humans, kobolds, and elves will be more frequent than dwarves and goblins. If you have a pocket world with a setting at high or less, then your world might exclude one or more of the default race civilizations from the world. The maximum number of sites setting deals with the number of towns, hamlets, and fortresses that a particular civilization can have during world generation. With a low setting, each individual civilization will be smaller, and increase the possibility that civilizations will be destroyed during world generation. Increasing the number of sites per civilization will make a larger portion of the world settled by the time you embark, which is desirable in many adventure mode games. If you plan on adventuring, having sites to explore adds to the complexity of your game. The number of beasts setting deals specifically with the number of megabeasts and titans in the world at the beginning of history. That said, some number of them will likely die during history generation, so the length of history will have some impact on the number of beasts available to visit your fort by the time you embark. However, the number of beasts doesn't impact how often your fort will be attacked by beasts. In adventure mode, more beasts makes it easier to find them in your world. With a low setting, you might not even see a living beast in your fort. After world generation, getting some familiarity with the beasts in your world can be done using the Legends mode, and I highly recommend spending some time in there. Your world is yours to learn, after all. Savage biomes in the world allow for the existence of both aggressive animals, strange creatures, and giant varieties. Beginning players may want to keep this setting at medium or lower, but turning up this setting does give the world a more fantastical feel, while also making the surface world, and some of the caverns, more exciting. The mineral occurrence setting deals with the types of metal ores in Fortress mode. The default setting, everywhere, is very generous with minerals, and you will likely see 3 or more types of metal on virtually every habitable location on the map. If you like to not worry about the amount and variety of resources you have available to you, then this sighting might be best left alone. However, if you want each fort to have a distinctly different feel, one way to manage that is with limited resources. Older versions of the game were set to a sparse minerals setting, so if you are coming to version 50 or later with that experience, be aware of this difference to the base game. Personally, most of my worlds are set to rare or very rare, because I like to have each fort rely on trading to get some additional variety into their metals, and frankly, I like building with stone. Note, even in rare and very rare metal worlds, the individual metal veins are still plentiful enough to supply your fort with enough metal for most reasonable needs. That said, if you plan on making a fortress completely out of gold or some alloy like electrum, having metal variety and plentiful are definitely needs you will have to address. This setting does have some effect for adventure mode in terms of types of metal equipment available as well. The wiki recommends turning this up for worlds where you plan to be an adventurer, but I could see the counter argument for that. In other words, choose the setting that works for you. Going back up to the history length, this is probably the most distinctive difference in how you're going to approach the game. Short histories, 5 years, will result in separated civilizations with few events to define them, mostly living beasts and forgotten beasts, and little interactions to bring need for adventure. If you plan on running many forts in the same world and you want to be the one doing the settling and development over the course of decades, a short history might be desirable. In my experience though, a short history is unfortunately so short, you don't have enough entities in the world to tell a story until 3 or maybe even 4 forts in. And you can only get so much fun out of fighting and dying from forgotten beasts. On the other end of the spectrum, a very long history can result in many civilizations falling, many beasts dying from battle, and the rise of undead forces, roving weird creatures, and interconnected intrigue. You might have to be careful where you settle because of nearby towers with necromancers, and maybe most of the civilizations have died off over time. History length has a distinct effect on the length of time to generate a world, but note, even if you set a long history here, you can pause generation at any time and start from whatever year you paused at if you like. Don't forget to take a moment to look up what's happened in your legends, though, else you might miss something important. Like, in the early autumn of 164, the adventurous Paint defeated the Letters of Holding and placed the dwarf Ilral in charge of Mythsplashed. The new government was called the Crystal of Quills. Thanks for listening. If you have any comments or suggestions, or even better, your own favorite settings and reasons, please leave them below. If you want to see me play some Dwarf Fortress live, catch me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Tellenartho or right here on YouTube. Thanks.